Chapter 2, Section 5, Dividing Rational Numbers. The objective is to learn to divide fractions and decimals. When dividing, we have the dividend is divided by the divisor, and the answer is the quotient. A number and its reciprocal have a product of 1. This reciprocal is going to be very useful when we divide fractions. For instance, the number 3/4. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. We just simply flip the number. If we multiply a number and its reciprocal, the product is always 1. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 over 12 is 1. -5/12. Its reciprocal would be a -12/5. Again, if we multiply a number by its reciprocal, the product is always 1. -5/12 multiplied by a -12/5. 5 times 12 is 60. 12 times 5 is 60. And we would end up with 60 over 60, which is 1. A whole number can be written as a fraction. So 6 could be written as a fraction of 6 over 1. Its reciprocal would be 1/6. 6 over 1 times 1/6. Again, a number times its reciprocal would equal 1. Now these reciprocals, like I said, are going to be very important when we divide fractions. Dividing with fractions. Do not change the dividend, the first fraction. Multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the divisor, the second fraction. Now remember, you can simplify before you multiply. So here are some examples. Example A, 3/11 divided by 3/8. Step number 1, do not change the dividend, the first fraction. So 3/11 will remain 3/11. Division is going to be multiplication. Now, multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the divisor, which is the second number. So the divisor is 3/8. The reciprocal would be, we're going to flip it to 8/3. Before we multiply, let's remember to simplify. Look in the numerator and the denominators for any numbers that would share common factors. The 3's have a common factor of 3. So I would divide both of these 3 by 3, and I'd come up with 1. I'm going to follow my multiplying fraction rules. Multiply the numerators together. So 1 times 8 is 8. 11 times 1 is 11. So my answer would be 8/11. In example B, let's not change the dividend, the first fraction, but I can rewrite it as 6 over 1. Division, we can change to multiplication, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, which is 3/4. So we flip 3/4 into 4/3. Now before we multiply, let's simplify numerators and denominators. In the numerator I see a 6, in the denominator I see a 3, and they share a common factor of 3. So I can divide the 6 and I can divide the 3 both by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Following my rules of multiplying fractions, I multiply straight across. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. So I'd have 8 over 1, or 8 for my answer. Now, dividing with decimals. Make the dividend a whole number by multiplying it by a power of 10. Step number 2. Multiply the divisor by the same power of 10. Step number 3. Write the decimal point in the quotient above the new decimal point in the dividend. Divide the same way you would divide whole number. Now with example A, I'm going to use a little bit of a different method. It's called partial quotients. And what partial quotients enables you to do is that you do not have to figure out how many full times the divisor goes into the dividend right away. You can do it partially, and I'll show you the example. So I've got 4.85 divided by 0.5. So I'm going to set it up this way. It's a little bit different setup than you might be used to. However, I think that it's easier often to use this method. So I've got 4.85 divided by 0.5. Now, I'm going to look at the dividend. The dividend of 4.85. I'm going to change this to a whole number. Now I'm going to need to do that by moving this decimal point 2 place values to the right. Now if I do that, I'm actually multiplying by 100. If I multiply the dividend by 100, I have to multiply the divisor by 100. So I'm going to rewrite this as 485 divided by 50. Now with partial quotients, I don't have to figure out exactly right away how many times 50 goes into 485. I can do it in a partial method. So 50 I know goes into 485 at least 8 full times. So I take 8, multiply it by 50, and I'm going to get 400. And then I'm going to subtract, and I will come up with 85. And I'm going to repeat the process. How many times does 50 at least go into 85? It at least goes in there one time. So 1 times 50, I'm going to bring the 50 down here, and I'm going to subtract 85 minus 50. And I'm going to come up with 35. Now, 50 does not go into 35 any whole times. Now, because of that, I know that it is, I'm going to put a 0 at the end. Now, that 0 is written in red to indicate that my answer over here is going to be actually in the decimal. So 50 goes into 357 times, but that is not 7, is actually 0.7. So I'm going to multiply that, and I'm going to subtract, and I will end up with 350 minus 350. Now I'm going to end up with 0 down here. That means I'm finished trying to figure out my partial quotients, but I do need to add up these numbers. Now 8 and 1 are whole numbers, so that's going to come out to be 9. Now don't forget the decimal, it's going to be 9.7. So 9.7 is the answer to 4.85 divided by 0.5. Let's take a look at example B. 5.49 divided by 0.003. I'm going to use partial quotients again. I'm going to set it up like this. 5.49 divided by 0.003. Now in this case, I'm going to try to change the divisor into a whole number because it has more place values to the right. So these 3 place values, in order to move this decimal point 3 times, I'm going to multiply the dividend by 1,000. I can do that as long as I multiply the divisor by 1,000. So I'm going to make both of them a whole number. So now I have 5,490 divided by 3. Now partial quotients means that I don't need to get exactly how many whole times at first. I can build up to that. So I know that 3 goes into 5,490 at least 1,000 times. 1,000 times 3 is 3,000. Now I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to come up with 2,090. Now I know that 3 goes into 2,498 times. I'm sorry, 800 times. So 800 times 3 comes out to be 2,400, and I'm going to subtract. And I'm going to have a result of 90. Now I know that 3 goes into 90 30 times. 30 times 3 is 90. I subtract, and I end up with 0. So now I am done with my partial quotients, but I do need to add how many full times it went in there. In this case, all of my answers are whole numbers, so I will simply add those up. 1,000 plus 800 plus 30 will come out to be 1,830. 5.49 divided by 0.003 equals 1,830.